Here is episode 2 of the History of MTWS. In the first episode, I talked about my origins into monster trucks. Now, in episode 2, I'm going to talk about all the monster truck leagues I pretty much did all the way leading up to MTWS, which I will finally talk about MTWS's origin in the next episode. But for right now, I'm going to stick with monster truck leagues I've done. So let's get into that. This is, of course, going to be a huge list of things to talk about, so I'm going to split up into smaller different things, but this is basically going to be first talking about Diecast and other toys like that for monster trucks, which was, of course, from the 90s all the way up to 2013 before I get into, like, the virtual leagues. Now, of course, before the fall of 2000 when the Diecast for Monster Jam first came out, I had, not diecast, but like a little bit bigger toys of monster trucks, both real and customs, and just regular paints and stuff like that. And just like I'm sure a lot of you who did diecast, I just did like events for like trucks crushing Hot Wheels cars and stuff like that. That's what I did throughout all the way up to 2000 when the diecast for Monster Jam finally came out. And that was basically it. I would just do events. I didn't really do like actual leagues or even just an event. I would mostly just put like stacks of cars out there and just freestyle basically. That's all I would pretty much do. It was then by the fall of 2003 when I finally began doing my very first diecast monster truck league. And it was Monster Jam. And I would just use all the trucks that I would have at the time as I collect them, pretty much the same drivers in the trucks, maybe some odd custom combinations that I could think of that would work. And this original Monster Jam League, which began fall of 2003, went all the way up to like the late summer of 2008, and it made it all the way up to World Finals 10, I think it was, which was like 6 months to almost a year before the real life World Finals 10 happened. Now, at first when I did it, I did the Hot Wheels cars like you would think. However, starting in 2004 and going much later into 2005, I decided to do a brand new idea for making obstacles. Dominos. Yeah, you're probably thinking, huh? Dominos? What? Well, let me explain it. The problem with Hot Wheels cars is, one, they're not really even, and I mean by usually size. You really, at least from my experience, I could never really find like Hot Wheels cars that were just like regular old standard cars you would see on the road. It would be more like hot rods or like custom cars and stuff like that. I couldn't find anything that was really balanced. And also I couldn't find like easily like buses, trucks, stuff like that. Dominos, on the other hand, offered something a little bit interesting. One, they were all the same size. So I could literally make a stack of cars, which would be like 5 dominoes next to each other, 6 dominoes stacked towards each other, like a car stack. They were literally the same height, the same size, so it was like equal formality. And because they were all the same size, I could make I could make obstacles out of them. Like I could make bus stacks, van stacks, semi-trailers, and other stuff like that. And to top it off, they were breakable. If I made like a van stack or a bus stack, they would break apart when the trucks go over them when I go over the pyramid. When I make semi-trailers, they would explode on impact both from the front or back side when I hit it. And of course, later on when I found out that they started putting cars inside semi-trailers in the World Finals, I started putting stacks of dominoes inside of them, which actually gave them a little bit more reinforcement. It actually turned out that dominoes for me were better than cars for Hot Wheels. And then starting in 2004 and then much later on in 2005, it became the normal to use dominoes completely and no Hot Wheels cars whatsoever. And that's what I did pretty much from 2004 all the way up to 2008 when I actually started doing something much more interesting and creative that probably a lot of you haven't ever thought besides the dominoes. Dirt. I would actually use dirt or topsoil in the case when I first started making these obstacles and would make tracks out of them. and I probably made over 100 tracks from 2008 to 2013. And then, of course, later on, I would eventually start in 2009 using spray paint. So, in a span of like an hour, I would make like an actual good track. And I actually took pictures of a whole bunch of them back like in 2009 through 2012 on some of our older phones, which I want to show you all so badly, but I have no way to get them off the phone. So the only way you're probably going to see them is if you were physically around me and I would show them to you. I wish I could show them here, but there really is no way. But yeah, that's what I pretty much was doing for the Diecast. However, after World Files 10 ended for that first version of Monster Jam, I actually canceled it and decided to restart all over again. And this was called Monster Jam again. And this league ran from the fall of 2008 to the summer of 2013. And it made it all the way up to World Final 6. And I was actually doing the seventh season for World Final 7. I only did like 2 or 3 events, and I never did one ever since. And that's been almost 6 years ago now. Now, this is kind of funny at first. At first, I would be doing like regular Dominos by and large. I didn't really use a lot of dirt back then, but by the time I got to like the second or third season, I started doing dirt obstacles with cars stacks in them pretty much. And I would start spray painting them too, which that was a lot of work to do. Usually it would take like an hour to make a full track. But this is really funny, although kind of wasteful now that I thought of it, remembering it. But World Files 1 through 3, the first 3 World Files of the series, I didn't use Dominos nor dirt. For obstacles, I actually used cake. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I would use cake. I would have my mother get a shit ton of cake mix, make cake, and then I would have her cut the cake into chunks for like obstacles, and then I would have her put icing on them as like paint. I know it's a waste and it's hilarious talking about it, but I did that and it actually kind of worked out pretty well. Now for like car stacks, not really, because when they ran over they would like split apart, flatten. It wasn't really quite right like the Domino's did. But for like semi-trailers, if she cut them right, they did a pretty good job. In fact, in semi-trailer stack I made for World Files 1, it actually did a better job than most semi-trailers I ever made did. It handled the pressure really well. The only problem was, of course, my mother hated doing it because she had to do a whole bunch of work and she thought it was a gigantic waste of money and food. But it wasn't a total waste, as my, we were able to eat some of the cake that we didn't use as obstacles or feed it to our animals. And the rest we just throw outside for birds and other animals to eat. So it wasn't like a complete waste. And it also was a pain in the ass because the cake would get flattened into the tires of the trucks. And I'm not kidding, some of the trucks that competed in like all 3 of the World Files, probably still to this day, even like 6 years later the last event I did with cake on was back in May of 2009, so 10 years ago coming up. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those trucks that compete in all 3 of the World Files with cake probably still have cake inside the tires even after all these years. But yeah, I had an absolute blast doing all these leagues. But by the summer of 2013, I stopped doing it. Not because I thought they were boring or anything, but it was a lot of work and I wasn't really motivated to doing it. And I had other stuff to do by then. God, by the fall of 2013, I was getting involved in like a whole bunch of different video games and stuff by then, instead of just being solely like working on the diecast stuff. So after that, I stopped collecting the diecast, although I stopped collecting like custom trucks years beforehand, but I still kept collecting like the real life Monster Jam trucks by and large, and I have them somewhere in the house, in bad shape. Most of them probably are, and I don't know what I would do with them. I thought about maybe one day like give them to like a possible like daycare maybe in the area, although I don't know if there's any in the area, not to mention I doubt they would accept them. They're not something I would be able to sell. So, besides throwing them away, which I'm not going to do, maybe I could possibly save them one day for any future kid I have for them to play with instead. And that way I can get any future son or daughter of mine into monster trucks. Which would be really, really cool. Just like how my father got me into monster trucks. But that's it in terms of the diecast trucks and the leagues. Now let's get into the virtual games, leading all the way up to MTM2. The first monster truck game I had that I remember off the top of my head was Monster Truck Madness 64, which was the Nintendo 64 port of Monster Truck Madness 2 back in 1999. And I played the crap out of it. However, I really did not get really into any much like leagues by and large. It wasn't until 2002 when Monster Jam Maximum Destruction came out for the PS2, because I played the Game Boy Advance version, which came out 3 months before the PS2 version. In fact, I think I actually got that when we were down in Florida vacation for World Finals 3, which was a really good time too to play that. Although it was really hard at first until I finally learned how to use the machine guns. But of course in Monster Truck Maximum Destruction, remember, I think it was like 26 trucks at the very beginning of the game or something like that. And funny enough, outside of the custom championship trucks, I never unlocked any of the other trucks 17 years later. I probably need Game Shark for them because they're so hard to get. But of course, remember in the game, it had racing and freestyling, or like stadium racing and freestyling. And racing I did not bother with because I always struggled in that, and it wasn't really racing just by myself or something to time with. So I mostly just did freestyle, where I would have like a group of like 6 or 8 trucks and put up freestyle within the time limit and judge them how I thought they did. That was really cool, but it wasn't really more like a league, it was more like just events. And then of course Stuntman came out that summer of 2002 as well, which of course was a game, for all of you that didn't know, it was a game where you were playing a stunt driver for movies, and you had to do certain objectives in filming of a scene. But as the game went on, you would unlock props and stuff which you can play with on a speedway, and one of the things you can use was a monster truck. And it had cars that you could crush, vans, buses, so you could actually make monster truck events on there, which I did that a whole bunch. And I haven't played that game honestly since like 2011. Oh god, I probably should play that again once again. That was a lot of fun, a lot of nostalgia. I would do events on that too. I would time both each pass for like racing, so I could see who would win in that regard. And freestyle, I would time and freestyle score just like that, so I'd actually do events, and I would do like world finals, although I did not do like leagues by and large. And then of course Monster Jam 4x4, well, Monster Truck 4x4 Master Metal came out in 2003. I did a whole bunch of events on that with my friend Tro. We would do the I think it was the South California track, where there was that not figure 8, but that speedway like area in the beach. Me and him would take like 8 trucks and just do our own events out there, which since he was better, he would almost always win in those events. Oh god, that was so fun playing that back in the day. And of course, later on 2007, Monster Jam game came out, and then Monster Jam Urban Assault in 2008. I would do not leagues, but events on them too, since that had much more capabilities to do events on, especially timed like single races, and then freestyling too. And of course, I did one event on Monster Jam Path of Destruction, but that was it by that large. But now we get more into the meat of the video. I mentioned this before on my 10th anniversary YouTube video, but I'm going to explain it once again. It was back in either August or September of 2007 when I was on my Dell. I was online looking up for something, and I don't know how this happened, but I came across a YouTube video, which was actually the first time I found out about YouTube, and I think I know who this is, although I'm not 100% sure. And Joshua, if you're in the video, please let me know if this is correct. But there was a user by the name of ACDC Fan something. I don't remember off the top of my head since it's long gone. Although I'm pretty sure it's Joshua. If it is you, confirm it for me because I want to be correct or not. But this person, ACDC Fan, did a Monster Jam event on World Finals 5 on MTM2. It was 16 trucks. It was basically the 16 best trucks at the time. And I know Gravedigger and Maximum Destruction won racing freestyle. I just don't remember who won what. I know Gravedigger and Max Obstruction went against each other in the finals and it was a photo finish. I just don't remember who won it, but whoever won racing, the loser would win freestyle with a perfect 40. I do remember that. And unfortunately, almost all the footage was taken down due to copyright crap back then, which was complete bullshit. But that video got me into MTM2. Because, think of it, it was a World Finals 5 track with the current Monster Jam trucks of the day, and there's nothing at the time that looked like it could do it. It looked like an ultimate simulator, which I would want, even though the game itself was almost 10 years old. I had to get that. I had to play a game, and I had to get those tracks and trucks and do, like, leagues on, maybe do videos on. And unfortunately, it would not be, of course, till June of 2008, which I would finally buy MTM2 on Amazon, which, by the way, I still have that disc to this day, and that's how I download and install MTM2 every time I need to do it. And at first, I couldn't do anything with it. I installed the game, but I could not get the tracks and trucks on there because the way they were describing it on the forums did not make sense to me. They kept saying, like, put the stuff in the directory. Bitch, I don't know what a directory is. What they meant by it is folders. So if they said folders, I might have been able to figure it out much sooner, but since they'd use directories, which I had no idea what that even meant, I couldn't do it. But I never gave up hope to eventually figure out one day. And then in early September of 2008, a huge thing happened, I found out, and that was a game called Monster Freestyle Racing, or MFR. It was a beta of like an upgrade version of MTM2 someone in the Monster Truck Madness 2 community was making. And he worked on it all the way up to 2009 before he scrapped it because of family issues. And it's long gone. You're never going to see it ever, so don't even bother asking me to find it or look for it. But it was the same game basically. It was on World Finals 7. It had upgraded physics. It had rear steer. It had a whole bunch of really good advantages to it to MTM2. And of course had the MFR truck, which I would be using MTM2 World Finals 1. But of course, back in September 2008, I ended up discovering how to add trucks and tracks onto MFR by podding it. And then I found out, since it's the same way that it was done for MTM2, I eventually figured out how to do MTM2 tracks and trucks onto the game. And then at September 2008, I decided I'm going to start up a brand new league. And I think it was called MTM2 Monster Jam. And it was going to start off with MTM2 Monster Jam World Finals. It was an event that was going to be on World Finals 9, and I actually did qualify for the event. It was going to be the World Finals 9 field, except with Stone Crusher, Black Stallion, and Donkey Kong being replaced by Bigfoot, Backwards Bob, and MFR to commemorate the fact that MFR was the original game that helped me figure out how to work MTM2. That's the reason why that truck was in the game. And I still had that truck and the original game, MFR, by the time I actually did the event in 2010, and I never played a game ever since after that, and I've never been able to find it ever since. So that game is long gone. But I filmed the intro of the video, which is one of my most popular videos at the time, which of course was really loud, so if you watch it, lower the volume by a lot. And I would do replicas of what the trucks pretty much did in World Finals 9. And I was hoping to film that series very, very, very soon, because I had Fraps eventually, and I'm pretty sure I did that video with Fraps. But I had really no way to comprehend how to do an event like that. And then I figured, I need someone to help me. And I found out, okay, the game is multiplayer, we can maybe do this. And my very first subscriber, I don't know if he's still around anymore, me and him were originally going to do MTM2 Monster Jam together. Starting in 2009, we were going to do the World Finals 9 event first, and then we were going to do a whole season, like week by week together. And I actually made a site, MTM2 Monster Jam at freewebs.com or something like that. The site is long gone because I deleted it in the middle of 2009. And it was going to be a show like every single week, culminating with World Finals 10. and had like different custom trucks, real life Monster Jam trucks, even old retro trucks from like back in the 80s. It was gonna be all kinds of crazy stuff. However, it never materialized. And then in the early 2009, we actually did try to play multiplayer for like 3 hours, but we never could connect. And that was a problem for me, which still persists today. I cannot play MTM2 online. In fact, I had one of the main people back then, MTM2, on the community, chat with me on AIM for over 3 hours, trying to get the game to work for multiplayer, and he couldn't get it to work, and he was surprised, like, I don't get it. What we're doing to get the game for you to work is not working. We don't understand why it's not working. So even the people who ran online leagues couldn't even figure out my problem, so that pretty much killed any online MTM2 career I had, and 10 years later, that's the problem that still persists. But I wonder if Hamachi would work possibly for that maybe one day. I guess I'll have to try eventually. Because even though MTM2 is now 21 years old, the online community is still strong despite Riggs of Rod's killing it. However, despite not playing online and eventually canceling MTM2 Monster Jam and postponing the World Finals 9 event until 2010 when I redid it and rechristened it as MTM2 World Finals, I still did monster truck leagues on MTM2 off screen. And the first one I did was I actually had 2 leagues, and they were both called Monster Jam, but they were different parallels. One was an actual replica of Monster Jam that I would do from 2000 all the way up to 2004, where I would do the exact same field on the exact same tracks at the time with World Finals, and I did all the way up to World Finals 5. No, I did up to World Finals 4, and I did the 2004 season, but I never finished it. And that was throughout all September into the fall and winter of 2008. The other league I did was Monster Jam, which I did any track I would feel like doing, and I would just do like any truck I could think that I wanted or download, be it Monster Jam trucks, retro trucks, customs, kind of like how MTM2 Monster Jam was going to be just offline. I did that for a couple series. However, it was not till Christmas Eve 2008 when a big breakthrough happened, when I made my very first track on MTM2. And it was a replica of the World Finals 1 track I did for the original, the second version of Monster Jam for the Diecast trucks I made. It was terrible. It was crappy. Maybe one day I could remake it in some way, but it was hot garbage for my first try. And then that January of 2009, I made my very first truck. And of course, it actually was an older truck on MTM2. I just made it and just renamed it, so it wasn't really a true truck I created. Iron Wing would be the very first truck I created on MTM2, and that would not be till March of 2009. However, that winter of 2009, after I finally learned how to make trucks and tracks, and I finally figured out and mastered how to pod trucks and tracks on the game, I decided no more replicas of Monster Jam and all that. It's time to go big. It's time to start my own monster truck league. And I began it. And that was called Monster Truck Championship, or MTC for short. Now, it was kind of weird, as when it first began, it was all the older custom trucks that were made back in 1999, 2000. None of the trucks were customs at all that I made, at least not at first. I just used the very older trucks, and I would make custom drivers, make their own personality on a score of 1 to 10, how they would race and freestyle and shit. And what I would do is, at first I would use replicas of real life events. And I did that all the way up to World Finals 3, which was actually the very first, when I first did, I did the World Finals and stuff like that. And in the second season of that league, I actually made both my truck, which of course was Iron Wing, and I also made my own truck for my father. I can't remember what it was called, but it was Spider-Man repainted, but it was still a spider-like theme, though, pretty much. But during this first league, I won a few titles. And I could have won a couple others if Iron Wing didn't break on me by and large. And my father won a freestyle title in one of those world finals. However, eventually I decided to scrap MTC and start all over again with MTC again. This time, however, I add a little bit more custom trucks as the series went along. And this time, I started to make my own custom tracks, as this was now into the spring and then going into the summer of 2009. And by and large, either be in my basement or in our living room, I would be on my Dell all day. I would make a track within like an hour or less, do an event on it, which would be like less than an hour, put all the point standards in, all that crap, and start all over. I would probably do like 4 or 5 events all in one day. And then that June of 2009 was when I made my very first public track that I put on MTM2.com. And that was MTC World Finals 1. And that was the first, and unfortunately, really, I think the only of World Finals of MTC. After that first season, I don't know if I continued on, but if I did not make any other World Finals tracks for it. So I have no idea. But by the time late July into August started to come around, MTC was pretty much dead. I stopped working on it, and I just kind of like lost interest, I guess you could say, in running monster truck leagues. I kind of got a little bit burnt out with MTC. I had a lot of fun with it, but damn, it really got me nowhere by and large in terms of like true enjoyment. So after like a few like weeks away from it, that itch came back, and that would lead to the Monster Truck League that you all know today. Monster Truck World Series, MTWS. However, that topic is for another time, as I will finally talk about the origins of MTWS in part 3. I hope you enjoyed me talking about the origins of my Monster Truck Leagues in part 2, be it, like I said, the Diecast, then video games, then MTM2, and all the leagues beforehand. That was a lot of fun talking about this and explaining the origins of that. But then next time out, when I talk about the history of MTWS, that's where it's going to be really interesting. And then you're going to really, really, really learn a lot of things that you never knew about. So see you guys hopefully soon for part 3 of the history of MTWS, where I will finally actually talk about the history of MTWS. See you guys then.